What is going on? Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. I'm Matt Verderame. He is Ben Heisler, and we are here to talk about the Chiefs and the Broncos having their first matchup of the year pretty late in the year. The game is going to be on December 11th. So, looking forward to a game where the Chiefs should theoretically bounce back. We're going to see what the hell happens. But yeah, this is Best Bets with BetSided here with Ben Heisler. Say that 5 times fast. Heisler, how you doing?
I'm good, Verderame. It's good to talk to you. Good to get excited about a game for the Chiefs again, considering all the nerves and expectations from last week and all the frustrations vented up from yet another loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. Excited to talk about that with you, and also excited to see so many of our listeners in person this upcoming Sunday. It's not only going to be you and the rest of the Arrowhead Addict crew, but I'll be there as well. Joe Summers. I was a big Chiefs fan on our BetSided crew is going to be at the event on Sunday. Cannot wait for that day to get here because I think it's going to liven up what should be a fairly ugly game, I would say.
Yeah, probably will be. I will be there. I am driving out to Kansas City tomorrow or Friday for those listening on different days. So I'll be in Kansas City Friday midday, and I am looking forward to hitting every barbecue place I can find. And then on Sunday, yes, we will be at Tanner's Bar and Grill on Rainbow Boulevard on the other side of the state line in Kansas. And you can RSVP to that. You can get there, check it out. We're gonna have a lot of people at this thing based off the response. So be there and be early. I would tell you, be there at like noon, 12. Like get there for the games. Like get there for the early games. Watch games there. Let's have a day of it. Lots of giveaways, lots of prizes, stuff like that. Get to meet everybody. It should be a lot of fun. Cannot wait. And by the way, like the dovetail into the game, I am with you. I have a feeling that, I know there are people who follow the podcast who have reached out to me who have been like, man, I really enjoy, even though it means that the Chiefs are frustrating, like when you go to rant or you get really annoyed with them. I think you're probably going to see that on Sunday at the Bar and Grill because I have a feeling they're going to do everything they possibly can to leave Denver in this game for about 3.5 quarters. So, yeah, come check it out. I think you're probably right, and this is not going to be a masterpiece.
No. There's a lot of indications that say that it should be, given the history between these two teams, given the history between Mahomes facing the AFC West and Andy Reid against the AFC West. And we'll dive into some of those trends that I think are worthwhile. But kind of where we thought it would go as far as the betting line is concerned, right? The first look of this game, late line before it closed, heading into last Sunday, was the Chiefs at -6.5. Again, I think there was always sort of the expectation that this line was going to go up. But then when it opened up, it was 7.5. It was only a point, given the Chiefs' loss to the Cincinnati Bengals and given the Broncos finding yet another way to lose a game.
Yeah.
They're right. Cannot score a point. The total that opened this game, Verderame, you and I talked about this a little bit on Stacking the Box on Tuesday. The opening line for this game was at 42.5. I can't recall, and I can obviously go and look it up, but just off the top of my head, I can't recall a moment where this Chiefs team with Mahomes under center opened up with a total that low in a long, long time. Even games with bad weather.
Yeah.
Like the snow game against Denver might have been the last time that we saw a total this low, and I think the Chiefs blew right past it. The line has since moved in both directions, both for Kansas City from 7.5 to 9.5, and the total has moved up from 42.5 to 44. One book even has it at 44.5. So there's some angles that I think you can pursue on the total as well, but that's sort of where things stand initially for this game. Movement towards the Chiefs, not much of a surprise given how bad Denver has been this year, given the fact that they're coming off of a loss to Cincinnati. They're going to be pissed, versus the fact that I think the over is also going up, given Kansas City's propensity to score points on their AFC West opponents. And you just don't think at some point this offense is going to wake up and explode.
Yeah, no, look, man. I mean, this is one of these games. This is a really, really easy, analysis for this game. I mean, it is what it is. And by the way, hate everybody who's in here. Good morning. Denver statistically on offense, good luck finding one thing they're good at. Honestly, they've taken the most penalties of any team in football. They've taken 91 penalties. Yards per play, the Chiefs are first in the league. Denver's 25th. Net yards gained per pass attempt. That's a good stat. I think it's indicative of a good passing attack.
Yeah, I agree.
Chiefs are second, right, just like a tenth of a yard behind Miami. Denver's 23rd, right behind Carolina. Yards per attempt on the ground. You're like, hey, maybe that. Chiefs are 10th in that, which is kind of surprising, actually. Denver is 26th. The only thing I can find is yards gained per completion. Denver's 9th. They're actually pretty good at that, and the Chiefs are second, but Denver's 9th. But then you get in a sack percentage. Like the Chiefs only give up a sack on 4% of their passes, like once every 25 dropbacks. Denver is 27th in the league in this, 8.6% of the time. So, I mean, Denver gives up a lot of sacks. They fumble the ball a ton. They fumbled the ball six most of anybody in the league. Like my point is, if you haven't already picked up on this, by the way, they're also the worst team in terms of kickoff returns in the league. They're terrible on kickoff returns.
Yeah.
They're average on par. I mean, what I'm driving at is they stink with the football in their hands. I mean, they don't throw the ball well. They don't run the ball well. They don't block well. Wilson doesn't get rid of it quickly, takes sacks. They are, I think, fair to say, the worst offense by a pretty good margin in the NFL. I mean, maybe at this point the Rams are so beat up, like you toss them in there. I don't know, but they are brutal. And Hackett said that he doesn't think Sutton's going to be able to play this week. So he's another guy they might not even have. It might be Jerry Jeudy and a bunch of people he's never heard of. If Kansas City can't win this game, they ought to quit. The question is basically, are they going to be able to score enough to cover what is probably going to be about 10 points by game time?
Yeah. The line is going to continue to move, and Mighty Sphinx weighs in that the Bengals game was circled and it was for the 1 seed and we put up a gutless performance. I don't believe in the whole pissed off thing. That's a really good point. And again, I don't think that was, and I don't think that was necessarily where we were coming from. I think it's a general indication of where the betting market is. Yeah. That they expect Kansas City, based off of their sample size against this division, against the success of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes against the AFC West, to play pissed. Like there's just too many games and too much of a sample, even with different coaches and different regimes. Like they take these games very seriously. Mighty Sphinx also says taking the under on this game might be the move. And there's a lot of reasons to go with that as well. Yeah. Denver is the number 1 under team in the NFL this year.
I bet they are.
You want to know what I put it in the notes? I don't know if you saw it, but just off the top of your head, Verderame, do you want to guess what the Broncos have played in 12 games this year?
Okay.
Do you want to know what their under record is? What do you think it is?
Man, I honestly don't know. I would 10-2.
You're damn close. 11-1 to the under this year.
Oh my God!
Isn't that incredible? Like, and it's almost amazing to me. Like I was looking at, you mentioned all the different pathetic numbers on the Broncos side offensively, but defensively, man, like I'm blown away by how competitive this defense is. I know.
It's true.
It almost makes you wonder, like, if and when they get rid of Nathaniel Hackett, like you have to give Jero Evero, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
Yeah, the coordinator.
Defensive coordinator. You have to give him a conversation. Like what he has done with this team has been remarkable. Yards, points per play. Denver, number 1 defense in the NFL. Yards per play, number 2. They are number 3 in the NFL in opposing third down conversion percentage. Red zone scoring. The number 1 defense in the NFL is the Denver Broncos. Yeah. Number 1 in opponent touchdowns per game. They've had some issues against the run. Like if you're looking for an opportunity to try and take advantage, they're 20th in opponent yards per rush, 19th in opponent rushing yards per game. But in the passing game, man, 2nd in the league in opponent yards per pass, 3rd in opponent passing yards per game. They're good at getting pressure on the quarterback. Like it's a really good defense that has had to play with an exceptional amount of pressure on their shoulders because their offense cannot do jack squat.
No,
that's where I think is going to be fascinating. Is we know how good Kansas City's passing offense can be, and we know the success that they've had against this team. I think Denver's had a win against Kansas City going all the way back to 2015.
Yes.
That's going to be fascinating. Like whether or not this is just a defense that, because of the nature of these games and because of how bad their offense has been, it's just been on them to carry them. Versus now you're going up against a high power team, probably the best offense that they have faced all season long. Are they going to be able to break? Are they going to bend and then break? That's what I'm fascinated to be able to see in this game.
No, it's all well said. I mean, look, I got a few more people just because the defense, Denver is a phenomenal defense. Offensively, just to drive home how almost historically inept they are. They're dead last in the red zone on offense, 37.5%. Okay, 37.5%. Chiefs checking at 66. Third down percentage on offense, Chiefs are second in the league. They're a tick behind the Bills at 51.4. They're the only two teams above 50%. Denver's 30th at 27.4. So the Chiefs are almost twice as good on third down. But here's the stat that just kills me. Okay. Now, mind you, both teams have played 12 games. Denver has punted 72 times this year. Okay. Which is 6 more than anybody else in the league. The Chiefs have punted 31 times. So less than half. Like that's only Buffalo's punted less. They punted 4 fewer times. That's it. Okay. So the question is well put by you. Okay. Because to me, 2 things for me in this game that will determine. I think the Chiefs are going to win either way. I think the Chiefs might play coma ball for 3 quarters, but I think they'll find a way to win. The 2 questions I have in this game are, I believe in Denver's defense. I think Denver's defense is excellent. However, are some of those stats inflated by the fact that teams don't have to throw the ball very much against them? That they can just sit back and play a really conservative game because Denver can't threaten anybody. They can't score. You're willing to play field position. You don't want to make a big mistake. It's not that I don't think Denver's defense is good. I think Denver's defense is good. But is it dominant good like those stats? Or is some of that because teams just say, look, don't turn it over. Don't force anything. Punt the ball away. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Because Denver has had some games this year when like the defense has been on the field late. Last week was one of them. And teams have had to move the ball. And they go down the field and they score a touchdown. Now, that hasn't always happened. Denver beat San Francisco this year in a game I'll never understand. So that is possible. The other question I have in this game is more of an emotional question. And it cuts both ways here. The Chiefs just lost to the Bengals. Do the Chiefs come out with like some aggression because of that, or do they come out in a coma? I actually think it's going to be the latter in this game. I think the Chiefs are going to be very sluggish in this game because they just lost a game they built up as like a borderline Super Bowl. Do they show up or do they just sleepwalk through this game? However, the flip side of that is, does Denver treat it like the Super Bowl for them? Or is Denver so emotionally just shot to hell this year that they just, look, we just want to get through this game? I don't know. I tend to think both of them kind of come out flat as hell. I could be wrong, but I think that Baltimore game, if that doesn't break you, nothing's going to. Like, you gave up 3 points all day. You can't score, and then you give it up at the end of the game, miss field goal at the end. I just wonder if Denver is emotionally just kind of like, F this, man. Like, let's just finish the season. Let's get through it. And then there's also the Hackett factor, which is like, even if the Chiefs sleepwalk through this game, can Denver do anything? Are they well coached enough to do anything at all? Or do the Chiefs just sleep to their way to winning 20-10? Those are the questions for me.
By the way, I love the comment that Mike Tavener Media brought up over on the show today, that the last time the Broncos beat the Chiefs, the iPhone 7 had come out. What are they on, 14 now? 13?
Yeah, we're on the 14. Yeah.
That's a long ass time.
Well, I wrote about it. It's going out on Friday. I wrote about the streak. It's 13 games.
Okay.
Only 3 streaks in NFL history of this type of streak, beating one opponent consistently. Only 3 are longer in NFL history.
Can I guess one of them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would the Packers against the Bears either in the mid-90s or the early 2000s be on that list?
It's not on that list.
Okay.
The only 3 that are longer, the Pats beat the Bills 15 times in a row with Brady.
Okay. Makes sense.
The Niners beat the Rams, I think, 18 straight times in the 90s. And the Dolphins beat the Bills again. They beat them every matchup of the 70s, 20 times in a row. So that is the stage setter. But yeah, the Chiefs, they are, I think, tied right now for the fourth longest streak. The funny thing is, Mahomes
I was also going to say the Broncos had beaten Kansas City six, seven times in a row before that.
Yep. And it's been wild. It's Mahomes has played in the 13 games. I think I have it in my stats on in front of me. Mahomes is 9-0 against Denver in his career. But what's wild is he's only thrown 12 touchdown passes in those 9 games. Like, he has not been statistically great against Denver. He's only thrown for 250 a game. Now, part of that, to be fair, one of the games he got yanked in early because they were blowing him out. And another game he left because he got hurt. He left in like the middle of the second quarter. So a little bit of that's good, but still, like only 12 touchdown passes, 9 games. Here's what I found interesting, though. Now, this is a different Denver team. We understand this. Denver against Spagnuolo's defense, since he's been on the Chiefs, averaging only 12.5 points per game. They have struggled tremendously against Spagnuolo from an offensive standpoint. Now, obviously, it's a different team, but it's also the worst offense they've ever had. So I don't know what to make of that. Like, if in your opinion here, as we start to drill down toward the betting side of this thing,
yeah,
Denver's averaging just under 14 points a game. Do you think Denver exceeds its average this year? Do you think basically 14 or more points in this game?
I have a hard time seeing it. And I think the question becomes, if you see the line movement towards the over, which we've seen, is whether or not Kansas City holds up their end of the bargain. Like, if the score is 24-10 for Kansas City, I think most Chiefs fans will feel relatively secure about that. But that's also 10, possibly even 10.5 points away from hitting the over if you have it on the higher side. So I have a hard time. 14 points, that involves Denver scoring 2 touchdowns.
Correct.
I don't think they've scored 2 touchdowns in a game, and I can look this up while we're discussing this, more than, 2-3 times this year?
It can't be more than that.
I'm going through their log right now. So they got the 2 touchdowns against Seattle. They got
week 1, yep.
Week 2, 16-9. So they got the touchdown and then several field goals. Got 1 touchdown against San Francisco. They got it against Vegas. And congratulations.
I was going to say, of course, Vegas. That's the one over, right? That's the one game that went over because Vegas scored like 30-some-odd points.
32-23 was the final in that game. Yep. And then they also got 3 touchdowns against Jacksonville. And I think maybe 2 touchdowns against the Chargers. No, that was 16. God, man. They cannot score more than 1 touchdown a game. Like, that's just what their numbers have been. So if you believe that Kansas City, especially with Spagnuolo's defense, having the success that it's had against this team historically, I'd probably lean towards the under there. That's the general indication here. I get that the line has moved, but I think it's more indicative of what bettors expect Kansas City to do as opposed to what Denver's going to do. And I also think it's interesting that given the fact that the Broncos are 11-1 in unders this year, that the total has moved in this game by 1.5 points. Let me give you a few other betting trends that I think are noteworthy that I came across for this game. So overall level, Chiefs, Broncos, both of them have been dog shit against the spread this year. Chiefs are 4-7-1. They've been better on the road, 3-3-0 against the spread away from home, and just 3-6-1 as a favorite. However, in the month of December, going back to last year and the year before, the Chiefs are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 games. They're also 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 games in Denver. The Broncos also bad 4-8-0 against the spread. They are 1-4-0 against the spread at home, but 4-3-0 as a dog. Mentioned the fact that how dominant they are in unders this year, the best under team in the league. The Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes against the AFC West on the road in his career does not have a loss, straight up. 9-5 against the spread versus the AFC West on the road. In total against the AFC West, he's gone 24-3, but just 13-12-1 against the spread. Also of note that if this line holds at 9 or 9.5, in fact, it would have to go all the way down back to, I believe, 7.5. That would be the largest underdog odds that Russell Wilson has ever been as a home dog in his career. As a home dog in general, he's 7-4 straight up, 8-3 against the spread. So this is somebody historically during his time in Seattle that it's like betting on Mike Tomlin. Like as a home dog, you just auto bet because he's actually won a ton more games as a straight up underdog relative to the fact that he's been incredible against the spread as well. And then a couple other ones that I think are noteworthy. The overs for the Chiefs have gone 8-2 in their last 10 road games. It's gone 5-1 to the over in their last 6 games against the AFC West. But in their last 8 games this year, the under is 5-2-1. So a lot to be able to take in there as well. And one other note, the Chiefs in their last 9 games against the AFC, 8-1 against the spread. Like fairly remarkable numbers given how dominant this team has been in some of their wins this year.
Yeah.
But they do not have a win in their last 9 games against AFC opponents.
Against the spread, right? I mean,
against the spread.
No, I mean, look, I think a lot of that is, well, I think it's a few things. One is the Chiefs have a hard time putting their foot on teams' throats at times. The Chiefs get leads and they let up, or they do what they did against the Raiders earlier this year, where they're just like in a trance for 2 quarters, and then they kind of stagger out of it and they get going. The Chiefs don't play 60 minutes. They don't. They play 30 minutes. They play 45 minutes. They kind of sort of show up for the other 30 or 15. So that's part of it. The other part of it is because of who they are and who their quarterback is, the line's always inflated with them.
Of course.
It's always going to be like if the line really should be like 4, it's always going to be 6, 7 with them because it's just Vegas is not going to get action otherwise if they it's all going to be on the Chiefs. So a lot of times I feel like the Chiefs would cover what like the normal spread would be, but then the line's like an extra half point or not a half point, like a field goal. So I think it's a combination of those two things. The Chiefs very rarely play 60-minute games. And then also the Chiefs, I think the line and the totals are always inflated because it's the Chiefs, it's Mahomes.
Yeah. No.
I will tell you with 5 minutes here to go on our show, I would tell you this. If I were a betting man, I would basically take my money in a Brinks truck to the bank and put it on the under in this game. For all the stuff about the Chiefs defense and how bad it is, the Chiefs defense statistically is pretty much about as average as you can get. Now, they were not good against the Bengals. I understand that. I was leading the charge with that one. That being said, this is not the Bengals, okay? And when they have played bad offenses this year, to their credit, they've been good defensively in these games. They lost to the Colts, but that was not on the defense. The defense was excellent in that game. The offense and the special teams couldn't get out of their own way all day long. The Chiefs' defense was very good against Arizona. The Chiefs' defense was very good against the Rams, gave up 10 points. They were good against the Titans. They were good against Jacksonville. To be fair to the Chiefs defensively, and look, I'm not in the mood really to be fair to the Chiefs defensively, but I try to be honest. They've been pretty good against bad offenses this year. Like, they really have. I mean, the Chiefs, I would argue the only game I could think of where the Chiefs really didn't play well against a bad offense was Tampa. And that game was a little wonky because they were up 21-3 immediately.
Yes.
And the Bucs this year, the reason they stink offensively is because they run the ball and run the ball and run the ball. Well, in that game, they couldn't. They ran the ball 3 times that whole game because they were down by so many points. And the Chiefs essentially were trading time for points for about half the game. So I kind of look at that game differently than I normally would. The Chiefs defensively, they're not a team that gives up a ton of points. Like you would think that they would be. They're really not. I mean, how many times this year have the Chiefs given up 30 points? It's not been many. I don't have it in front of me. Off the top of my head, the Bucs got the 31 in garbage time.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone else scored 30 points against the Chiefs? The Chargers haven't. The Raiders didn't. They came close. No, they didn't score 30 points. The Bills were in like the mid-20s. The Niners didn't.
Niners scored 23.
Yeah, and that included a garbage time touchdown. Has anybody?
Yeah, no. The only team that scored Vegas dropped 29 on them 29. The following week, but not 30. So Chargers put up 27, but that was it. Yeah, you're right. They've only allowed 30 points once this year.
Now, look, there have been plenty of teams in like the 24 to 27. I'm not sitting here telling you the Chiefs are the 85 Bears. My point is, it's not a defense like, frankly, Miami's been this year, where they just get shredded to hell in some of these games. Like, the Chiefs' defense, statistically speaking, is very average in almost every category. So if you're average defensively against Denver, I don't think you're giving up more than 14 points in this game. I just don't. I mean, Denver can't score. I think the Chiefs are going to win this game right around 7 to 10 points, which is why I wouldn't touch the spread. I think, look, Denver hangs around. The only thing I will say, and I think it's going to be a 7 to 10 point game. If the Chiefs come out of the blocks fast in the game and get up like 10-0 after a couple of drives, I could see a scenario here where Denver just completely folds to 10.
Yeah.
That's the only way I see a game where the Chiefs beat them like 30 to 3 or something, because they get up.
Even then the under still hits.
That's it. That's why I'm saying I take the Brinks truck to the back. Like, I can't see. I think because what is the line? It's what, 44? You said the total's 44?
Total is as high as 44. I saw one book, and I can pull it up right now. I believe PointsBet at one point had the total still available at 44.5. I can confirm that in the next 5 seconds. Yes, PointsBet still has the under available for anybody watching at 44.5. I mean, it's at 43.5 at FanDuel, then 44 everywhere else.
I mean, unless the Chiefs completely wet their pants, and I mean completely wet their pants, Ben, they're going to have to score 30-plus points to even touch the over.
Yeah.
I mean, and I get it. Like, the Chiefs' offense is capable of it, but I also think it's one of these games. This is going to be an Andy special. If they get up 10 points in this game, they're just going to play. They're going to try to just basically take a knee as much as they can. This is going to. They don't. Very rarely do the Chiefs really pile it on. They just don't. Like, they don't feel like they need to. You know, they don't. They are very much like, if they get up by 10-plus points, I guarantee it's going to be Pacheco and McKinnon. And the big thing with the Chiefs, the only way I think they lose this game, honestly, is if they just give up like a pick six. Or they do what they did against the Colts. They muff a punt inside the 5-yard line, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because if Denver's consistently got to go 70-plus yards, they're just not doing it. They don't. I mean, they have nobody on this team. So, like, I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think it's going to be a boring game. I think it's a lot going to be like that Rams game, honestly. Boring, kind of whatever, probably kicking some field goals. I think it's like 23-13. You know, maybe it's even like 20, weird score, 22-15 or something. Like, but I don't think you ever doubt that the Chiefs are going to win. It's just not a masterpiece. What do you say here as we're wrapping her up?
All right. So I actually just did a little bit of price shopping while we were discussing that. So just in the interest of full transparency, I bet both sides of this game because I was able to get them at two way different numbers. We talked about that a little bit on the show last week. I took the Chiefs at -7.5 at the beginning of the week when I think one book had it there. Most other books were anywhere between 8.5 and 9.5. So I have the Chiefs -7.5 and the Broncos +9.5, hoping that the Chiefs win by 8 or 9 points. I'm able to middle both of those bets together. However, if I was choosing an actual bet to take right now, go to DraftKings, go to Arrowhead Addict, go to BetSided, go wherever you can to find one of our codes if you haven't signed up for a DraftKings promo yet. Because because DraftKings at -125 odds have the Broncos team total set at 17.5. Huh. Verderame, 17.5 under for the Denver Broncos might be one of the easier bets. I haven't placed it right yet just because we're in the middle of the show. The moment that we sign off and say bye-bye, boom, going to the phone, placing that bet.
The only way, the only world they hit 17 points is, again, if the Chiefs literally like a pick six or a scoop and score, or if it goes the other way than we think and the Chiefs just beat the piss out of them. And it's one of these things where it's like the Chiefs are playing backups for a quarter and a half defensively.
Yeah.
That is
right. And by the way, shop around because that line was 16.5 at FanDuel. Now you get better odds for it. You get it at like minus 110.
Yeah.
So you're paying a little bit more. A $25 bet on the under 17.5 for Broncos team total would pay out $20 instead of like 21.73 or whatever it might be. But that's a good line. That is a very, very good line, especially if you're not convinced that Denver's going to be able to score. One last thing, because I know we're up against it. Our guy Reed Wallach wrote an awesome piece over at BetSided this week, because I know that Mahomes right now is leading the MVP market, but it's not by much anymore. The once unfathomable lead that we thought he had is now shrinking. Jalen Hurts is starting to catch up a little bit to still, I suppose, mathematically in the conversation as well. If you are looking for an alternative way where you think Hurts and the Eagles just continue on and they pass up on Mahomes, right now at PointsBet, you can get Mahomes to win Offensive Player of the Year at 11-1. He's 10-1 in most other books. PointsBet has the best odds that I've seen so far, but he writes a really good rationale behind why, even if the MVP race falls out of his control, even with the years that Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill are having, Mahomes has put up the numbers, especially if they're record-breaking numbers and he doesn't win MVP, voters are going to feel like he's got to get something. And remember, like, this is still a subjective vote. So if he puts up another record-setting season, but Hurts is the likely MVP, Mahomes is probably going to be the biggest beneficiary of the Offensive Player of the Year award. Again, we're talking about 10-1, 11-1. He's not the favorite here, but that's where the value is in that market. So for anyone thinking that he's going to win MVP, I get it. He's the favorite. To me, and also to Reed, I think we're both very much in agreement that if you're looking for pure value on a futures bet for Mahomes, 11-1 for Offensive Player of the Year certainly is worth your consideration.
No, for value, sure. Absolutely. I think in the end, he's going to win the MVP. Because I'll tell you, I don't think they're losing another game. And there's two schools of thought. One is, look, they play these bad teams. Like, maybe he doesn't have to put up huge numbers because they'll just be ahead in these games. There's the other school of thought that says he goes scorched earth for a month and just throws like 20 touchdown passes in these next 5 games, and he hits 50. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. All right. So your big bet on this game is going to be you bet the Chiefs minus 7.5, but you also middled it. So you took Denver plus 9.5.
But the bet that I'm going to make the moment this show is done, Broncos team total under 17.5 minus 125 at DraftKings.
Okay. I would just take the under, and then I would just add a little bit of, whatever value you get it with it by taking the Chiefs money line. I just think, look, I don't see the Chiefs losing this game. I would be surprised. Cliff says we were supposed to beat the Rams by 30, and you guys said if there's ever going to be a blowout, it would be last game. Can we retire giving betting takes? You're going to have people living in tents. Listen, Clips, I tell people all the time, I don't bet. Now, Stacking the Box, we've been rolling. Okay, we're like 500. Okay, we have handed out some great betting advice there.
The Tuesday bets have been really good. I will also tell you that my best bet for last week was the first half over, which was at 25.5. And if you recall, Verderame, the Cincinnati Bengals had like 4th and goal, like on the 2-yard line.
Yep.
And Carlos Dunlap fucked up that bet for me by taking down Burrow, because otherwise they would have just kicked the field goal. It would have been fine, or just snuck their way in. But no, he had to stop them on 4th down. Zach Taylor had to be a dope, and we lost that. We lost that bet. So yeah, you're gonna get some bad beats, Clips, but I think we'll be all right.
Hey, listen, Clips, for the record, I told you last week, take the over. Well, the over hit. Okay, so I am going to be the first one to tell you, and I also in that Rams game said I thought that game was going to be hideous. Now, I thought that if there was a game, they'd blow them out. They would. By the way, they covered. They covered in that game. They did cover.
In the Rams game?
The Rams game. The Chiefs covered the spread.
Yeah.
It was 15.5. The Chiefs won by 16 points.
I think it depends on what book you were looking at.
When we broke it down, it was either 14 or 15.
It was a push.
So
it's sort of the general consensus line.
So at least when we went on, they covered with the line we talked about. So that being said, Clips, if you're betting based off what I say, okay, I cover the league. I'm a reporter. I'm an analyst. We're talking about the line. Heisler is the betting guru here. If you're betting off of what I say, you deserve to live in a 10. Okay? So just know that. We're breaking it down. We're doing the best we can. That being said, I would take the under in this game. I would not touch the spread, and I just tack the money line onto it. That's what I would do. I think the money line, look, if they can't win this game, they ought to give up. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, honestly, if they lose to Denver, it's a donation, okay? Denver can't beat anybody. Carolina just beat the shit out of them 2 weeks ago. So give me a money line that doesn't have a lot of value on its own, but then tag it on to the under. If this game doesn't hit the under, I'd be surprised. And you laid it out already. My God. I mean, 11-1 Denver, the under. So, all right, we got to get the hell out of here. We're 8 minutes late. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please like the video if you haven't already, unless you're clips and you're maybe getting your electricity turned off right now because of us, in which case, sorry, man, that sucks. But thank you very much for watching Best Bets with BetSided. He is Ben Heisler. I am Matt Verderame. Check out all things BetSided on YouTube, on Twitter, and of course, fansided.com/BetSided. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Heisler's out. I'll be back at 4 o'clock Central today live with Patrick Allen breaking down the game all the way across. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Take care.